A side, B side, what side are you on?
It's like 50% of it. Ooh, I heard it.
Nice.
I'm like a real boy. Well, let's not go too far.
Welcome back to another episode of the A-Side, B-Side podcast. What's going on, Adam?
I am doing well, Brooke. Enjoying September. This is my favorite month out of the year. The weather is palatable, and there's this idea of new beginnings every year. Both my parents were teachers as a kid, so fall was always a big new time, new pencils, new papers, new grades. So it's always fun. I'm in a good mood.
I kind of feel like that Green Day song, Wake Me Up When September Ends. I'm exhausted.
And that song is now in everyone's head.
But here's the thing. We didn't play it. We don't have to pay for it.
That's right. But we can get it. We get put that earworm just by mentioning the song.
So last week I mentioned that, got a new job. And so this has been my last week here in Bowling Green. I'm working my last few days at the station that I've been at for almost 17 years, which is where Adam and I met. And we started mornings together and how we became friends. And so it's a bittersweet week because I'm so super excited about this new opportunity. But when you've been in a place for next month is 17 years. So that's a long time. That's longer than a lot of relationships. And I've raised two beautiful girls here. So
yeah, you've been a valued and connected part of the community for a very long time. It's going to be very weird for your voice not to be heard over the airwaves in Bowling Green.
I haven't made the announcement officially on the station. I'm not going to do that until my last day. But the few people that I have told here and there, like every time I tell someone, I get teary-eyed because they say the most beautiful things. And I'm like, I know you're only saying this in my face not in my face, not everybody. It's been, through text or in face, but I know you're saying this just because I'm leaving and you think you should, but oh my gosh, it makes me feel so good. So thank you.
Well, yeah. And it's just a reminder that like, this is a weird thing to equate it to, but there's always to say that like the stuff that we say at funerals and at weddings is the stuff that we should say all the time, but we feel like we have to save it for special occasions, or we only get motivated to say it for special occasions. So I'm sure people, once they hear that this might be the last time, they're like, okay, here's all the stuff that I wanted to say, but now I feel like I can have a socially acceptable time to gush. So
yeah. So I think that's my very last day. And so, every day I do a call topic because I kind of tell you about them sometimes. And I think the last day will just be asking, hey, what's on your mind? Talk to me. Like what are some of the things you've liked from the past or, whatever. Just call and talk to me.
This is Brooke Summers and I'm listening.
I'm listening. But I am excited to head to Nebraska and it'll be a new adventure. And I don't think I told you this, Adam. Maybe I did. When I was on the tour of the station that I'm headed to, in the lobby, they have teamed up with a coffee company and they have an iced coffee keg.
Right there in the lobby.
Right there in the lobby. I am taking the biggest mug possible.
Like the super big gulp with the handle on the side. Like you're a trucker on a long haul, just going to go there like 74 ounces of coffee.
You're just going to hear me constantly. I don't care about everybody else. It's just going to be me constantly.
The people at the front desk are just going to be like, oh, look, must be 2:00, Brooke.
I thought she went home.
She did. That's why she lives close. It's like, aren't you off today? Oh, yeah, I just came in for the coffee.
Oh, man. So, but yeah, I'm excited about that. And the adventure with my youngest, I think that's going to be fun. She's coming with me. And so looking forward to that.
Convoy across the country.
Yes. We will be safe. I've promised my mom and your mom that we will be safe. And, so it's a fun adventure that will start this weekend. Sarah, who listens to the podcast with her husband, she said, well, we followed Adam's move, so now we get to follow your move. So.
Yeah, it's basically so I guess it's my turn next year because I moved about literally September of last year. So
so every other year,
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to break my lease.
Well, when you moved last year, Adam, you talked about going to Goodwill and like you had like the situation where you dropped off something, or there was the shelves, that shelf situation when you went to Goodwill.
Oh, I don't remember half the things I say on a weekly basis, let alone what happened last year. But I'm sure.
You felt like bad because there was like shelves or something that you were gonna drop off, and I think the car behind you was gonna take it or something like that.
Oh yeah. So I was in line unloading the truck, and the person behind me saw like I took out like a bookshelf, like a little bookshelf thing. And the lady in the car behind me jumps out and it's like, hey, are you getting rid of that? I'm like, I'm at Goodwill. This isn't where I store stuff. This is where I get rid of stuff. And so then she was like, oh, I'll take it. And so I'm giving this thing to Goodwill for them to sell. And she like intercepts it before I could give it to Goodwill.
Yes, was it. That's what.
Yeah. So I was like, sorry, Goodwill, this lady just took that bookshelf. So sorry.
Well, I saw the most interesting thing at Goodwill. Okay, first of all, I'm sure Goodwill, if they have cameras, they've got to be like, who is this that keeps pulling up here in this vehicle? Because I have pulled up there.
I'm sure it happens anytime, every end of the month, it's got to be the same people like for that month. Because like somebody's like, oh, I'm moving, so I'm going to make 4 carloads.
Yeah. I went the other night and there was a piano in the middle of the drop-off lane. But it wasn't even right side up. Someone had like unloaded it, and it was the piano itself would have been vertical, I guess you would say, because it was on its side.
Like, are we talking like wood giant, like heavy, hard to move piano?
Yes, I'm going to send you a picture right now so everybody can get your reaction. And a literal old school jazz club piano.
I don't even think that was legal to. Oh my God, that is. Man, they were like, okay, let's get this off the. Oh, it fell.
Yeah.
Oh, it's off the truck. Time to go.
So
it literally looks like they're like, well, it's off our truck.
Not our responsibility anymore. It's off our truck. I guess I should post that on our Instagram then, since we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Real quick, I did have the opportunity, like whilst packing, to catch up on What If.
You're
finally.
Yeah, I haven't watched the newest one with Killmonger.
No, I haven't watched it this week, but I did watch What If Black Panther was Star-Lord, and what if the Avengers, if the Avengers had lost, and then the other one was if they were zombies.
Yeah. So
no.
You watched the Doctor Strange one too?
Yes.
Yeah. That one was tough.
Yeah, that one was really hard. Is the Doctor Strange one and the zombie one, they're two different ones? Yes, because I think that one came after.
Yeah, the zombie one was last week's. So it's the newest one before the one that came out today.
Okay, yeah. So the Doctor Strange one was really like, I was like, kudos Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
Yes, I did call him that on purpose.
I'm sure he's heard worse. and I'm assuming he listens to the podcast. I mean,
hey, I did just see a statistic that I'm gonna believe it. I choose to believe it. We were in the top 10 globally.
Top percent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Top 10%.
I was gonna say top 10 globally. You're not gonna have to be Russian to move.
No, top 10%. Top 10%, but that's still pretty cool. So thank you for listening and making us and putting us there, because I think that's amazing that we get to do this. We just kind of ramble about what we watch and then true crime and you were with us for the ride, so thank you.
Yeah, it's great. Anytime, like I will forget that other people are listening sometimes, and then I will have someone reach out to me about something I said, and then I'm like, what? Oh, that wasn't just a conversation with Brooke. That was part of the show. Other
She
people
left
heard
that in
that.
there.
Oh, okay. But yes, I'd love to talk more about that thing.
Oh man. So before we jump in, have you seen anything? Oh, I heard Malignant is pretty decent. And I actually heard, so we both had a conversation, and I did post that on our Instagram, or my mom and I had a conversation about you that I did post on our Instagram that I thought was pretty funny. Which
in the annals of people saying my mom and I had a conversation about you, this is the best one.
My mom sent me an article about you could get $13,000 for watching scary movies, and she sent it to me, and I was like, no, not me. And she was like, how funny would it be, to watch to have Adam do that and like have people watch his reaction. That's what we were saying. We could watch Adam's reaction, and Adam, I think that would be the best thing ever.
I think you'd have to tie me to the chair, because I would just find ways not to watch. I'd have my hands in front of my face, or like I'd be turning, or like I would have to be like strapped into a chair, like, hostage style, to make it through 13. It was like 13 hours.
Yeah.
13 hours of horror movies. Ugh. And I could do it if I could turn off the sound.
Like my daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. Because the sound makes it so much, because they're so good with the sound, with, building the tension and the suspense, and then giving you the fake scares, and then the sound effects for when the stuff happens. Ugh. They're impressive. I don't know, how they do it. The Foley artists that do all the sound effects and everything, but those things, the sound always gets me. So I think I could watch horror movies without the sound on and closed captioning, because then I'm just reading. I can read horror books, but for some reason, it's like the combination of the visual and the sounds is just, it's too much. I can't even keep my eyes open. So it'd be like 13 hours of me watching through my hands.
Right. Constantly taking pee breaks and not pausing. Yeah. No, it's fine. I don't need to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just yelling back at the TV, like having a conversation with the TV the entire time. Don't go in there. Oh, they went in there. Shouldn't have gone in there.
You didn't listen to me. Why did you go in there?
Yeah. And then like trying to reason with the killer, like, do you really need to do this, man? Just like, how much is therapy? Like, you've got so many weapons. You could have used that money to see a nice doctor. We could have been okay. Maybe you could have talked to Star-Lord, and you could have talked you out of the genocide. I don't know.
So I'm going to guess you're not going to see Malignant.
I am not. I actually went to Shang-Chi again this weekend. So that's 2 Sundays in a row that I have watched it in the theater. I really enjoyed it the second time as well. And I love going to movies more than once, because you see stuff you don't see the first time. And especially in fight scenes, I love to watch the background and see how the other people are reacting, or try to watch the people who are getting hit and how they're reacting. And there's some really great, like on the bus. So there's a bus fight scene. It's in the trailer. I don't think it's a spoiler. There's a big fight scene on one of those double-decker buses with the accordion in the middle. And there are some great reactions, because there's all these other people on the bus, and the main character and the bad guys are fighting, and then the people, you can see them, are in the background, and just watching their faces and the reactions are so good, because you can tell, like, some of them have to be just like completely unplanned reactions of reacting to what's happening in front of them. And it's really cool. There's one lady whose eyes like almost bug completely out of her head at one point.
I gotta see it. I can't wait till I can't wait until like maybe like during the week next week, because I know I'm not going to be working all day, especially the first week. Like, go fill out your papers. All right, go home. Bye.
Go find a place to live.
Go find a place to live. Yeah. So I think I'll take an opportunity to check out the theaters there and go see Shang-Chi, and I also want to see Candyman #2.
Yeah, I've heard that's one that I will not see personally, but I've heard really good things. People that are into horror movies that are friends of mine have raved about it and said it's really well done.
Now, see, that one is one I'm definitely going to see because it's kind of A-side for me. It's nostalgic, because
Yeah.
Candyman came out 20 years ago, and they say that Yaha Abdul-Mateen's performance is stellar.
That's awesome. And
Anyway.
it's instead of being one of those like reboot, like forget everything that happened before, this one does the thing where it kind of continues the story but gives it a new spin, I believe. So.
Yes, that's what I've been told. So I'm excited.
I have more respect for them when they do that than when they just like pretend everything before didn't happen.
This one,
it's harder to do, but it's better when it works.
Right. And this one actually broke some records because it's the first time that a Black female director's movie made the top of the box office.
Oh.
So kudos to her as well for making such a good movie.
It's been and I know that Shang-Chi broke a bunch of box office records as well. And then Black Widow, which was a female superhero movie, is the top grossing one of the year. So far it's been a fairly record-breaking in good and bad ways in terms of not everybody coming back to the theater right away, return to the cinemas. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for the diversity. I'm here for, all of that. So
I watched the first episode of Why the Last Man, which we talked about.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Mm-hmm.
So they put out put out 3 episodes. I thought they were only going to do one at a time, but it looks like they're going to do them like in waves. So there's 3 that are available now. They came out on Monday. Then the next one, the 4th episode, is going to be available next Monday. I watched the first episode, but I am trying not to binge because it's intense and I don't want to wear myself out too much. I watched the first episode last night before I went to bed after work, and I really enjoyed it. I like it. It is very different from the comics. It's not, I mean, the comics were 2002, 2003, written in a different era and really focused, at least at first, on the guy. And he's still like, that's still the main plot point, but there's so much more. They've really expanded the world. And instead of it all being about why Yorick, it's pretty much about his sister and his mom and the other characters. And it's really going to be much more of an ensemble thing, which the comic eventually got to, but at first it felt really focused. This is already starting out with a lot of different, the idea of all these different threads being weaved together. So it's really intriguing so far. The first episode is basically everything leading up to the event, and then the event happens at the end of the episode, and it is, you got trigger warning, it's gruesome. It is you got to be prepared for some gore because it is not a pretty ending for everything with the Y chromosome. But it has me hooked so far. I had to stop myself from watching the other 2 episodes because I'm trying to not overload my senses all at once. And I'll probably watch the next episode tonight, but I'm excited. I think it's got a lot of potential. So
I think I'm going to check that out. And then also, I love Only Murderers in the Building, and it got renewed for a season 2 already.
Oh man, that's another one I am behind on.
I think this would be, even though you don't particularly, I can't say that word, even though you don't particularly love true crime like I do, I think you'll enjoy this show because of Steve Martin, because of Martin Short, and Selena Gomez to an extent. I mean, she, like I said, she's the straight man in this, but they're just so funny. They're so funny.
And I've been looking forward to it. It's just, there's so much stuff out right now, and with school starting and sports or football starting again, and just the state fair up here, it's been a crazy time. We are in a overload, like embarrassment of riches period of media. There's just so much stuff to watch, and it's hard to catch up with everything. which
Yeah.
is great because it used to be like, back when it was all network TV, you had ABC, NBC, and CBS. They had new shows in the fall, and that was about it. So we've come a long way since just those shows. Now there's so much to watch. It can feel overwhelming.
It's like that old Virginia Slim commercial. You've come a long way, baby.
Yeah. Way to go, media. Way to take over everything.
Oh, man. All right. So are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. So like you said earlier, I think you said it before we started recording, it is an odd week, which means I go first.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the A side for this week is very thematic, and it fits perfectly with the fact that we talked about John Christie, who had so many jobs in the B side. And today's the big day where Brooke is going to be switching jobs. So we are going to talk about one of my favorite stories about an actor losing a job in a movie. So I know way back when we talked about the story of Eric Stoltz and how he was the original Marty McFly and then was replaced by Michael J. Fox. And most people don't even realize that they filmed half the movie and had to redo it again. And that's why Crispin Glover ended up suing the studio. And now there's a whole law called the Crispin Glover law. Make you do the same job twice without getting paid for it. This, however, is my favorite one. And it goes back to a movie that I knew about and knew the entire plot line of before I had ever seen it. And it goes back to the fact that in grade school, there were certain movies that I wasn't allowed to watch because my parents were worried they were too violent, or they were rated R, or there was something scary in them that was going to scare me and give me nightmares, because I already had nightmares as a little kid. So it was like, why give him more? And I would depend on my friends watching movies, and then I would quiz them and make them tell me the entire plot line to the point of reenacting scenes on the playground so I could figure out and tell me all about the movie so I could experience movies that I had never seen and still be part of it, because I really wanted to see the movies, but I couldn't watch them, and I needed to know everything about them. And so Matt Johnson, who is one of my friends to this day, we've been friends since fourth grade. He was great about being able to tell me these stories of movies that he was able to see because he had an older brother, and I wasn't able to see because I was the oldest and my parents wouldn't let me watch it. So he would explain the entire plot line to me, complete with reenacting things on the playground at our grade school of different places. So the bad guy was up here and he was down here and they jumped down and he swung over here, and it was great. And one of the movies that I remember most learning that way was 1987's Predator, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. And of course, if you're Minnesotan, you have to mention that it also starred Jesse Ventura.
Such a good movie.
Who would go on to be the governor of Minnesota for a little bit, probably because he had one of the greatest lines in action movie history when he's standing there and he got a bullet grazes him and he's standing there, and one of the other characters goes, "You're bleeding," and he goes, "I ain't got time to bleed." You're like, "Oh, super badass. You should be governor." And that's basically how the campaign in Minnesota went. What I did not realize when I was a little kid on the playgrounds of Prince of Peace Lutheran in Minnesota, learning all about the Predator action movie, was that a very famous actor was cast as a Predator, but was fired before it was ever filmed. And in fact, the scenes that he filmed were one of the reasons, supposedly, that he got fired. So in 1987, there was a struggling action martial arts star who had just come to America and who was looking for a role and was trying to get cast in all these movies. And he would literally show up at casting directors' offices. And the casting director for Predator was an individual named Jackie Birch. He would show up at their office and do all of his martial arts moves and be like, "You got to put me in a film. Look at all the stuff I can do." And the director, that casting director said, "Okay, I got this perfect thing for you. You're going to be the alien in this upcoming action movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, because nobody moves like you. Nobody moves like Jean-Claude Van Damme."
What?
Yeah. Jean-Claude Van Damme was cast as the Predator. He then goes all the way down to Mexico for filming. They create a cast of the alien, suit for him, and he ends up getting fired within the first week of filming. And so he never, he never gets any credit for it. He's not in the movie. All the scenes that he filmed were cut. They totally redid the costume. So he gets fired from Predator and is no longer part of the movie. However, in 2017, the Hollywood Reporter went and did a bunch of interviews about the 20th anniversary of, no, that would have started the 30th of Predator, with a lot of the casting director and the actors and the visual effects people did this whole interview oral history of the movie. And it came out that there are 6 different versions of why Jean-Claude Van Damme was fired from the movie The Predator.
Holy cow.
And to this day, no one is really sure of which one is the reason. And so it's become sort of this urban myth of all the different reasons that Jean-Claude Van Damme was fired. So we're going to go through all 6 reasons of the reason that Jean-Claude Van Damme was fired from Predator, and including some eyewitness testimony from various people who were on set. And the best part of the 6 different versions, 3 of them are eyewitness accounts of the moment he got fired.
Shoo. Okay.
So the most unreliable witness in any situation is an eyewitness. So we've got a lot of unreliable witnesses, but also it turns into a lot of great stories. So one of the reasons that Jean-Claude Van Damme was cast as a Predator is because he moved so uniquely. Mm-hmm. He was martial arts. He could jump around. He could do crazy things. We've seen him, as a martial artist in all the movies and Bloodsport and Street Fighter, and, everything, how he is just uniquely talented and very athletic. And so the original idea for the Predator, that it was going to be more of this like insect lithe jumping around, type of, alien, as opposed to what we all know, which is this more like humanoid, 7 foot tall, just big, scary looking thing. It was going to be more insectoid. And so they wanted to get this very unique costume. And so they got Jean-Claude Van Damme to do all the moving inside it, but then they built the costume around it. And the costume had a head that was like an ant's head. So it was like a helmet that he would wear that his face would actually be in the neck of the beast. He would have very long arms, which had little marionettes within them so that he could move the hands, because the arms were about twice as long as his actual arms. And the legs were super long and reversed, so they were the opposite, they bent opposite of human knees. So he was on stilts. So he's in this costume, can't see out of the top, has, prosthetics on his arms, and he's walking on stilts, walking through the Mexican rainforest, which is very uneven ground, and supposed to jump around and look all lithe and incredible athletic and very scary. Turns out that he was one version of him getting fired, who comes from the casting director, Jackie Birch, says that he was complaining the entire time that he couldn't do any of the stunts. And after a week, they got so tired of it that they fired him. In fact, Jean-Claude Van Damme had put all of his belongings in Jackie Birch's garage. So they, because he didn't have any place to live. So he put all his stuff in the garage, went down to film the movie, got fired, came back, took everything out of the garage. And the next thing that the casting director knew, he was filming Bloodsport and becoming a huge star. So that is version number 1. He complained too much.
Interesting.
Okay, hold on. I just got an alert that my phone, my computer's about to die. So pause.
Okay.
I got to plug it in. We've been having too much fun. Because, all right. Okay. So version number 1, he complained too much, got fired because the costume was too crazy. There is some interview with Jean-Claude Van Damme where he talks about the costume and how he thought it was going to be mostly him and then like makeup, like he'd be wearing some stuff, but you could be able to see his face. And that's why he took the role, because he thought that he would be able to be seen. And because the costume was going to be so huge, you would never know it was him. So he was basically just a stuntman, and he hated that as well. He talks about how they made the suit was mostly out of red rubber because they were going to be opposite of the green forest, so they needed to be able to do that so it would show up, and then they could put the digital graphics over top. And it was incredibly hot in the forest. So he's wearing a giant rubber suit that he can barely breathe. I said during the casting of the creation of the suit, they had to put all the straws in his nose and then mold the stuff to his face for the latex, and he thought he was going to suffocate. I have had one latex mold made of my face for a Shakespearean production when I was living in Boston, where I played. It was my character gets his head chopped off, so they needed a fake head, so they did the cast. This is the worst hour and a half of my life, the most uncomfortable thing ever, because you can't move, and just stuff feels melting onto your face, and you got straws stuck up your nose. So I totally understand why Jean-Claude Van Damme would not enjoy that. But I only had to do it for an hour and a half. He had to do it like for an entire suit, and then take that suit down to the rainforest and run around in it. So another one was this, because the suit was so gangly and it was hard, he was running around and he broke the costume. Ooh. And the costume was, evidently like $200,000 for the head alone. And according to Craig Baxley, who was the second unit director and the stunt coordinator, he was on set, and the costume had a head of an ant, and it was an absolute fortune. So they brought out Jean-Claude Van Damme, and he put the head on, and Jean-Claude Van Damme freaked out because he had the helmet on and people weren't going to be able to see his face. And he took the head off and he threw it and he said, "I don't want this." And it shattered. And it was $20,000 for the head alone. And Joe Silver said, "What the F are you doing?" And he says, "You'll never work in Hollywood again," and fires him right there on the spot. So that is number one eyewitness account. He was fired on the spot because he broke the creature's head.
But that's twice that it's referenced that he wasn't going to be seen.
Yeah. He didn't like that. So version number one, complained too much. Version number two, he broke the head because he freaked out because he wasn't going to be seen. Version number three, which comes from John Davis, the producer, he says he was the original. Jean-Claude Van Damme was the original Predator until they realized that he was only 5'5", and they needed someone much taller because later Kevin Peter Hall, who was the actor that we all know as the Predator, is over 7 feet tall, and they built an entirely new suit for him. So basically, it wasn't Jean-Claude Van Damme complaining or having broken the suit. He was just too short. So he got fired because he was too short.
Kevin Peter Hall, by the way, who we talked about in Harry and the Hendersons.
Yes, absolutely. Who was the guy to go to if you needed a tall actor for any action or fun fantasy style movie in the 80s and 90s. Another one was that they actually did film some scenes with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and he was upset, and he wouldn't put on the suit. So they made one of the director, Joel Silver, had to go down there and say, we got to figure out how to get Jean-Claude Van Damme to put on the suit. And another actor, Richard Chavez, who played Poncho in the movie, was told to go down there and talk to Jean-Claude Van Damme and convince him that he's an alien and he's got to get into the suit. And so Chavez spends a couple hours trying to convince Jean-Claude Van Damme to put on the suit. And he doesn't want to do it because no one's going to know it's him. And he's like, "But everyone's going to know it's you, Jean-Claude, because nobody can move like you." And so he finally gets into the suit. He runs around. They do some filming. They send it back to the studio, Fox. So they've got Jean-Claude Van Damme has agreed to do it. They're doing it. They're filming scenes. They send it back to the studio, and the studio absolutely hated the costume. They hated the idea of the ant insect sort of style monster, and completely nixed it and said, "Nope, you got to change it. No more of that." Fox hated the original costume, and Jean-Claude Van Damme only got fired because they wanted to go in a different direction. So that is version number 4. Version number 5, which comes from another actor, Bill Duke, who played Mac in the movie, says that the reason Jean-Claude Van Damme got fired is because he kept passing out. Remember, we talked about the suit was made of rubber. It was super hot. You're in the jungle. It was this 180 to 90 degree temperature. And according to Bill Duke, Jean-Claude Van Damme had passed out twice from dehydration. And a director came over and said, "Jean, I know it's hot, but we're losing time, man. If you pass out one more time, we got to fire you." So Jean-Claude Van Damme says, "I'm not doing it on purpose. And Joel Silver says, man, this is a production. Don't take it personally. 2 weeks went by. So 2 more weeks without him passing out. And what he's on wires in the trees. And eventually he passes out. The director comes over.
No.
You're fired. So version number 5, according to Bill Duke, who played Mac, is that Jean-Claude Van Damme passed out too many times and then was fired. Final version of why did Jean-Claude Van Damme get fired from Predator comes from the visual effects supervisor, Joel Hynek. And he says he was in the director Joel Silver's trailer, and they called Jean-Claude Van Damme to come in. And Joel Silver says, you got to stop doing kickboxing moves, because Jean-Claude Van Damme was a kickboxer. And so all of a sudden, the moves that this alien was doing were kickboxing moves, and very obviously kickboxing moves. And he's like, the Predator is not a kickboxer. And Van Damme was, I must do it. That is how I see the Predator. And then Joel Silver says, well, you're fired. Get out of here. And Van Damme says, content warning, kiss my balls, walks out, and that's the end of it.
Wow.
So the 6th version is he was fired because he wouldn't stop being a kickboxing Predator. It all comes down to the fact that no one really knows or can prove which of these versions is true. It's likely from everything, the one common theme that runs through everything is Jean-Claude Van Damme didn't like the fact that he couldn't be seen. The first costume didn't work very well and was super hot, and Fox hated it. That all lead to Jean-Claude Van Damme leaving the Predator. But it does make you wonder how different the movie would have been if instead of this menacing Predator played by Kevin Peter Hall, who's scary the moment you see it, and got the fangs that come out of its mouth area when it takes the mask off, and just a striking visual that everyone knows that's the Predator, an iconic character. Mm-hmm. If that had been a more insect-like movements with an ant-like head doing kickboxing moves, if the movie ever would have been as successful with Jean-Claude Van Damme. So I think in the grand scheme of things, it was best for both Jean-Claude Van Damme, because now he could go on to be in movies where he could be seen. And it is interesting that every movie after that, he didn't not only wear stuff on his face, half the time he didn't even wear a shirt. So he was like, everyone will see Jean-Claude Van Damme going forward. So it worked out for him. It worked out for Predator. But on the day when Brooke is changing jobs, I wanted to highlight one of the most interesting job change stories that I've ever heard of in one of my favorite movies, The Predator. So if you're interested in more details about the filming of Predator, the links to the Hollywood Reporter oral history, and then also there is a YouTube video with 2 of the people that created the actual suit. That was the first suit, and then the different suit, talking about how it was created and their stories dealing with Jean-Claude Van Damme. All those links will be on our website. I've sent them over to Brooke, and you can learn more about the incredible history of Jean-Claude Van Damme and his connection to how the Predator used to be.
Now, I want to know, what is your favorite version?
Of the favorite version that he got fired?
Mm-hmm.
I think I will answer that in 2 ways. I think the most realistic one is Fox saw it and hated it and they fired him. I think my favorite one is getting fired for passing out too many times, because I could just imagine Jean-Claude Van Damme, how do you not pass out? It's not like you can do it. If you're super hot and you're trapped in a rubber suit and you're in the jungle, there's only so much body regulation you can do not to pass out.
It seems like they would have installed some kind of fan or cooling system or something.
Yeah. I think anybody who's done any sort of, performance art, whether it's theater or radio, you've always had that one interaction with a boss or a creative advisor who said something completely ridiculous that you had absolutely no control over, but you now had to do it. And having a director come up and be like, stop passing out, is super funny to me, but also I feel like that is completely plausible, where a director would be like, stop doing that. Mm-hmm. And you have to suddenly stop passing out. So that's my favorite one, is that he couldn't stop passing out, but Joel Silver expected him to be able to control that.
Stop it. And he's like, I'm trying.
It's like, I'm sorry, it's really hot and I'm in a jungle in a rubber suit. I mean, I remember there was one weekend before I left Bowling Green when we didn't have, we had a live action broadcast at a Kentucky Wireless, and it was for another station in our cluster, and they wanted the mascot there, but we didn't have anybody to dress up as the mascot, and it was like July.
Mm-hmm.
So I volunteered to put on the mascot. Also, I got paid, so that was definitely part of it. I was like, I'll take the money, but I put on the animal costume in July in southern Kentucky on a hot sunny afternoon at like 3 p.m. and stood on the corner trying to get people to come check out our live action broadcast at this cellular store at a strip mall. And I'm on the corner in a parking lot, and I about died.
Because those things are not temperature controlled.
No, it was just a big suit. There was no ventilation. It was not a safe experience. Also, if you ever want to experience some very interesting comments, I advise you to try dressing up as a giant beaver and standing on a corner in a college town at 3:30 on a Friday afternoon, and just see what that's like.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can only imagine. I did that for like an hour or two and kept taking breaks by hiding in the big yellow van and taking the head off. I can't imagine trying to do kung fu moves and running around the jungle and not passing out.
Okay, here's the thing. Okay, all of that aside, comparing an ant costume or an ant head, a costume with an ant head, to what we know as the Predator. And like, I haven't watched the video you sent me, but just like looking at the thumbnail of this red head, not scary at all.
Yeah, no, it doesn't look good. And that's why I say, check out the YouTube video that we've got linked. It does show some of the, like, what appears to be the dailies of someone running around in this costume that was red, so they could put the special effects on it. But it looks ridiculous. It does not look scary. It does not look imposing. It's not the Predator, and it was a very good change.
It was an extremely good change, because I can't imagine this red ant thing doing that little Predator click and being intimidating. You'd be like, well, yeah, something stuck in your teeth. What's going on here? What are you doing?
Yeah. It looks like a bad monster movie.
Yes.
Like it looks like an old school, like King Godzilla. Like this is like one of the other, monsters. It's just not good. And the Predator is so cool and badass, and just like it looks intimidating. You're like, oh yeah, this thing definitely is hunting humans for fun. This does not look like it hunts humans for fun. It looks like it's about to get squished.
Yes. So they're all right. I will say that Predator is one of the quote unquote horror movies that I love. Like, I was pumped when they came out with the new Predator, or the Predator movie. What was it, about 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2018, I think, is the most recent one.
But Predator 2 with Danny Glover happens in New York.
Yeah. Or is it LA?
I think it's New York, because there's a subway system.
Must be. Yeah, must be.
Oh. Although there's probably a subway system in.
Oh, no, it's in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. But anyway, so there's that moment at the end, which, I mean, spoiler alert, this movie is how old? That came out in what, 92 or something like that? 91?
1990. So
90.
We're closing in on 31 years.
So the end where the Predator gives Danny like that gun,
mm-hmm.
like as a show of like, yeah, I respect you as a hunter or whatever. It was kind of like, dang, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I completely am with Predator and Predator 2. Love them. I was never a big, like, the Alien franchise. I really liked Aliens.
Yeah.
Alien is a classic movie. I can't watch it. Like, the rest of the ones were pretty awful. So I was never all that into the whole Alien versus Predator thing. It felt really
forced.
Yeah, it felt really silly and forced, and like that's why it was just so good. The concept was so good for the Predator 2, and it worked. And then it kind of did that whole like movie sequel thing where it just kept getting more and more absurd.
Yeah. But I've never been an Aliens person. I did see Aliens vs Predator just because I am a Predator person, but I don't know. I was all like, on what planet is Alien beating Predator? Like, I mean, come on. Have you seen Predator move? Like, have you seen the weaponry? Like, all the alien has is the big mouth with the other alien. Shut up.
Yeah, no, it was like, okay, so you've got this like hunter. It would be like, okay, I guess if you get a pack of hyenas, they could take down like a tiger or a lion, but like one-on-one, it's never going to work.
Right. But yeah,
that was animal. Welcome to World Wildlife Understanding with Adam.
I like this one. I mean, I always like your A-side, but I'm like, because Predator is like one of my movies that I'm just like, yes.
Did you know of it? Did you know the Jean-Claude Van Damme connection?
I did not know that. So that makes that even more interesting to me. I feel like 6 Degrees of Jean-Claude, because Jean-Claude was actually on Friends as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. So I was watching, because I watch Murder, She Wrote on a daily because I am old. And there was an episode with Courtney Cox in it just the other day.
Oh, look at that. It's just all connecting.
And eventually we connected back to Angelina Jolie, as we do in every episode.
As we do. It is an Angelina Jolie podcast.
Yeah, every time.
All right. So that's the A-side?
That is the A-side.
All right. So next week, Adam, I will be in my new almost digs because I still have to find a place. So my new job is putting me up for a little bit. So I will be in my almost digs. So we will be broadcasting even closer.
Yeah. We are. I think before too long, we're going to have to do an episode where we're both in the same place.
Absolutely, because you will only be a couple hour drive from me. So that would be like something fun we could do like one weekend or something. We could meet up and record together in person and see each other for the first time in forever, 13 years.
Yeah. 14 years. We could do what everyone does when they're on vacation, and that is both road trip to Des Moines and meet in Des Moines.
Why?
Because that's what everyone does in the Midwest, obviously.
Oh, is there something to do in Des Moines?
To record a podcast.
Okay, let's do it.
They actually have a very, very good craft beer scene, and the minor league hockey team for the Minnesota Wild is down there. So I'm sort of joking, but I think we should do that this winter. Is meet in Des Moines, go to a hockey game, and record the podcast. Not at the hockey game. That'd be a lot.
That would be pretty loud.
Yeah.
All right.
Welcome to the A-side. Ooh, that guy got crushed on the jack.
All right. So, of course, if you would like to support the podcast, you can do so in several ways. We've got Buy Me a Coffee, which is buymeacoffee.com/A-side-B-side-pod. Money goes to production, promotion, and coffee. Also, we've got the website.
A-side. B-side podcast.square.site.
Boom, got it. We have the socials. We have a Facebook. We have an Instagram. We have a Twitter. Of course, going to post a picture from earlier, the piano we talked about, episodes, pictures from this episode. We'll put those on our website. We'll also put those on our Instagram. You can always DM us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. Love to interact. Let us know where you're listening. We love that as well. And YouTube, we do have a YouTube channel, so you can check us out on YouTube. Is there? Like, subscribe, share. Please let your friends know all about the podcast. Share it with them. Thank you. Thank you.
And be sure to like and rate us on the Spotify, the Apple Podcast, all the other places that you get your podcasts. We're on them all, and that is a great help for us when you rate and or like or share those. That's an awesome way to help.
It 100% is. All right, Adam, Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brooke, and good luck unpacking.
Thanks. This is a story that I had actually researched quite some time ago. I think I've told you this, Adam. I have like little notebooks where I write out all my research and I color code it. And the way I have my paper clip determines whether we've done the story or not. It's very intricate in my head. Probably makes absolutely no sense to anyone. And so this story was actually in the very first notebook. I am on notebook 3 for us now. So wow. That's how far along ago that I researched this. This is the story of John Christie. So John Reginald Halliday Christie was born April 8th of 1899 and known to friends and family as Reg Christie. So John is a real piece of work. And it's actually debated. It's been debated along with his victims. He's responsible for the incarceration and death of an innocent man. Oh. So he's got victims, and then he's also got someone arrested that didn't deserve to be arrested. So John was born in, I hope I'm going to say this correctly, North Alram near Halifax in West Reading of Yorkshire. He was the 6th of 7 children. His father, Ernest, was a carpenter, and Ernest had some issues. Ernest was considered to be pretty grim, considered emotionless, and he didn't really like to communicate with his children, which I feel like older fathers back in the day, that was kind of a thing. They thought it wasn't manly to like chill with their kids or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a bygone era, one would think. But yeah, that seems to plop up a lot. But like dad standoffish or only talk, like, oh, don't talk to children. That's women's work. It's like, well, right. That's not really what that happens, but okay.
So the only time he really talked to them was when he was kind of punishing them. And it was usually over really trivial offenses. Then you've got the other side of it, the mom who she alternated between coddling them and bullying them. This is John. She alternated between coddling John and bullying John. And so did his older sisters. John, who was said to have kept himself, was described as not very popular. He lost his grandfather, David Halliday, on March 24th of 1911 at the age of 75. John, who saw the body of his grandfather, obviously, later admits that seeing his grandfather laid out gave him a feeling of power. He said seeing a man that he had once feared as a corpse, like somehow made him feel powerful. So John wanted to...
It makes sense. It makes sense. Kind of.
I mean, I guess, yeah, like, you can't do it's. I guess I get it. Like, you can't do anything to me now. I mean, I guess I see that, but yeah. I don't know that that's most people's normal reaction. So John won a scholarship to Halifax Secondary School at the age of 11. His favorite subject in school was math, algebra in particular. He was also really good at history and woodworking. It seems that John also had a very high IQ, 128. So I'm going to give you a comparison. The average IQ, if you don't know, is considered about 100, but the range is really between 85 to 115, but average is 100.
Okay.
So John is 128. So even on the high end of average, he beats that. Mm-hmm. John sang in the church choir and was a Boy Scout. After leaving the Botham Town Council School, I don't know why I said Botham, Boothtown Council School and the Boothtown Board School, John began working as an assistant projectionist at a movie theater. That seems like your kind of job right there, Adam.
I've actually was a projectionist for a little while in college, putting together film. I would go to the movie theater and place the films together and put them in the big rolls and then take them off the big cameras when they're done. I loved it. It was so much fun. But they used to come in all these different cases and you'd have to literally put the film together so it would all be on one giant roll to run on the film camera. Now everything's digital. So
see, I know you. I knew that was like your kind of job.
Yeah, absolutely loved it. It was so cool.
So John suffered from impotence from early on in his teen years. It's rumored that he had troubles, or that his troubles started when he was about 10 and he saw his sister's leg. He saw it like from her knee. And I guess that's where this trouble started. I mean, heavens to Betsy. He saw her leg up to her knee.
I mean, it was a different era. It was almost Victorian. It was like seeing people's ankles or wrists was considered like you were a floozy if you were showing people your ankles. So I mean, maybe seeing an entire leg, it was like, oh my god, overload.
That ankle, girl, that ankle.
Yeah. Well, when everyone's completely covered in skin, whatever skin you can see becomes probably more alluring. I mean, when everybody was wearing masks, I think that people really started focusing on each other's eyes more.
That's true. Okay, valid point. Thanks, Adam. You're
welcome. Yeah.
So,
Kids for weird sexual kinks. Adam, 100.
So apparently, he already resented his sisters for her bossy nature, because you remember she would alternate between the coddling and the bullying, and then now seeing her knee, her leg and her knee, it just really added to this weird sexual issue that he had. Mm-hmm. So then rumors began to surface about his lack of sexual prowess, performance, and he was given the nickname, I apologize, this is not a nickname I made up, but this is what his nickname was, Reggie No Dick and Can't Do It Christie.
Wow. So they weren't horribly clever.
No, but mean.
Yeah.
So psychologists have asserted that John developed a hatred and dread of women because of his dysfunction and was only able to perform and overcome it when he was in complete control, which we already see he has an issue of control as it is because of the whole grandfather thing.
Yeah.
There's a part during his trial that he said, all my life, I've had this fear of appearing ridiculous as a lover. So, I mean, better a psycho killer, right, than a ridiculous lover?
I guess. And by ridiculous, I mean, I think in this case, they're saying like pathetic.
Like lousy. Yeah.
Lousy,
so,
yeah.
Yeah. Hey, better a psychopath, murderous douchebag than a lousy lover.
People fear one, they don't fear the other.
I guess. It should be noted that John's issues were psychological. Upon examination, all his physical parts were normal and functioning. Okay. So John enlists in the British Army in September of 1916 during World War I. He was called into service on April 12th of 1917. He joined the 52nd Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire Regiment to serve in the infantry. In April of 1918, his regiment deployed to France, where he became support to the Duke of Wellington, West Riding's regiment as a signalman. In June, he was injured in a mustard gas attack and spent a month in the military hospital. He claimed that the attack left him permanently unable to speak loudly. Later in life, he claimed that the attack also made him blind and mute for 3.5 years. His period of muteness, according to him, was the reason that he was unable to speak louder than a whisper for the rest of his life, which, as a murderer, adds on to the total creep factor.
Yeah. I mean, whispering can just be real creepy. Like, yeah. Like if I imagine, like if I was, walking up to a table and I'm like, hey, can I take your order? And they're like, yes, I would like a Diet Coke and a juicy Lucy with fries. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to leave now. And we'll just have somebody else take your table because I got to go change pants.
Oh, man. Okay. So Ludwig Kennedy, a Scottish broadcaster and journalist, found no record of John's blindness and points out that while he may have lost his voice when he was admitted to the hospital, he would not have been he would have been discharged as not fit for duty if he had remained mute. So it would seem that much like his impotence, his inability to speak loudly was a psychological reaction to being gassed and not an actual physical reaction.
Right. Which, again, I mean, it's still, physical and mental is all tied together. So.
Right. And I'm not a psychologist, but I am telling you what some psychologists believe. So John, it seems, was also prone to hypochondria. John was demobilized from the army on October 22nd of 1919, but he must have had a love for armed services because he joined the Royal Air Force on December 13th of 1923. Further proof, I'm saying this is my addition to this. This to me is further proof that he had no long-lasting effects from the gassing, because he would not have been allowed into the military again if he did.
Right.
But his service didn't last long. He was discharged on April 15th of 1924. So not quite a full year. In between his military service, John managed to find a bride, which is shocking since he hated women.
But he was a soldier and serving his country, so maybe that factored in.
True. Her name was Ethel Simpson Waddington, who was also from Halifax. They married on May 10th of 1920 at the Halifax Register Office. John, ever the gentleman, what a good dude he is, frequented sex workers as his impotence issues persisted. He'd been frequenting with these sex workers since he was about 19 years old. So Ethel unfortunately suffered a miscarriage early in their marriage, and after some legal trouble that we'll discuss in a little bit, John leaves Ethel and moves to London, leaving her behind. So she moved to Sheffield with her family and started working as a typist. They'd been married for 4 years at this point in time. John spends the next 10 years in and out of legal trouble, culminating with his release from prison in January of 1934. So, I mean, that's basically just the summary of he's in and out of trouble for these years. Mm-hmm. Ethel, who at this point was 35, single and lonely, agrees to reunite with John once he gets out of prison, and they move to Rillington Place. That's going to be relevant in a second. Okay, so we're going to get into some of John's criminal problems. January 10th, 1921, while still actively married to Ethel, John is employed as a postman, where he stole money orders, or what they call postal orders, money orders. He was stealing money orders. He's caught and convicted for his crimes. And on April 12th of 1921, he's sentenced to 3 months in prison. He serves his sentence at Her Majesty's Prison of Manchester, or HM Prison, it stands for Her Majesty's, in Manchester, and is released on June 27th of 1921. This small taste of prison apparently wasn't enough for him to put him back on the straight and narrow, because on January 15th of 1923, he's convicted of obtaining money on false pretenses and for violent conduct. For this, he receives 12 months probation, which to me, that's getting off way too easy. I'm just saying. Yeah. In 1924, he commits larceny 2 times and then receives 3 and 6 month sentences. And this time, he serves his sentence beginning of September 22nd of 1924 at HM Prison, Wandsworth, which is one of the largest prisons in the UK. John then goes through a series of jobs. After working as a lorry driver or a truck driver for 2 years, John's convicted again on May 13th of 1929 for assaulting Maud Cole, a sex worker that John had been living with in Battersea. So he's sentenced to 6 months of hard labor. He had hit Maud over the head with a cricket bat and was sent back to HM Prison, Wandsworth. In 1933, on November 1st, John was again in legal trouble. This time he was convicted of stealing a car from a priest who had befriended him and was trying to help him. And back to HM Wandsworth he goes for another 3 months.
I wonder if they just kept his room ready.
They were like, I'm done.
Yeah, don't put anybody in there, John. I'll be back in a week.
Right. Yeah. They have like a sign, welcome back, John. All right. So earlier I mentioned that Ethel and John reconciled. It was, after that last time at HM Wandsworth. So he seemed to kind of stop the petty crime, but he did continue seeing sex workers. In 1937, John and Ethel moved to the top floor flat of 10 Rillington Place in Notting Hill. They moved again to the ground floor flat in 1938. Now, I hear Notting Hill and I think of like, what is that? That movie with Julia Roberts.
Hugh Grant and
Julia Roberts. Yeah, this is not romantic like that at all. The house was a 3-story brick and terrace built in the 1870s and was a pretty common design at the time. The ground and first floor flats each contained a bedroom and a living room with a scullery or a kitchen. The second floor flat was different in it only had 2 rooms, a kitchen/living room, and a bedroom. The building's occupants shared 1 outdoor bathroom. Like nobody had their own bathroom. Nobody. The street was
a dormitory or a hostel.
Yeah, but it was outside at that.
It was a very cold hostel.
Yeah, can you imagine waking up in the middle of the night and having to pee?
I went camping once, and that's why I only went camping once.
So the street was close to an above ground section of the train line. Then it was called the Metropolitan line, meaning like noise from the trains would be really, really loud. So John had worked for 3 years as a foreman at the Commodore Cinema when the Second World War broke out. He applies to the War Reserve Police, which is a voluntary role within the ranks of the British police force. It's a role only active during wartime. They were sworn in under the Special Constables Act of 1923 and had full powers of a police officer. I cannot believe he was allowed to apply at all, given this criminal history that he had.
Yeah, I'm guessing in the middle of World War II, they weren't doing a lot of background checks.
Probably not. Yeah. Exactly. I even have a note. They made no background check.
Hey. It's like, hey, you appear to be able-bodied and not currently at war. Congrats.
Right. You're not incarcerated and boom, you're a police officer.
Yeah, not currently incarcerated.
So he was assigned to the Harrow Road police station and he enjoyed his service immensely, becoming almost fanatical and earning the nickname Himmler of Rillington Place, which if you know your history and you know Himmler, that is not a compliment.
No, he kind of got power mad.
Yes. Because Himmler was real abusive, as was John Christie. He started following women. He watched neighbors, and no matter how petty the crime, John was there to take care of the criminal. So while at this position, he meets Gladys Jones, and John and Gladys begin a relationship. John is still married to Ethel.
I was going to say, hold on.
Mm-hmm. So that affair lasted until mid-1943 when Gladys's husband, who had been overseas with the war, returns home unexpectedly. He caught John in his house and he beat the fire out of him before throwing him out. Ooh. He also files for divorce from Gladys, citing John as a co-defendant. So John now has the taste of the adulterous life, and he continues inviting women into his home, taking advantage of Ethel's frequent visits to her family. John's impotence and hatred of women escalates as his humiliation about his performance pushes him to murder.
Honestly, it's taken a real long time to get to the murder.
You know what? It really has, because I mean,
he's dabbled in just about every other type of crime.
And now he's like, well, what's left? Murder? Yeah. All right, let's check that off too. Okay, so John's first victim, her name is Ruth First. She's a 21-year-old Australian munitions worker who added to her income as a part-time sex worker. John meets Ruth while she's working, looking for clients at a snack bar in Ladbroke Grove. So on August 24th of 1943, he invites Ruth to his home because Ethel was out of town. Mm-hmm. And after their encounter, John strangles Ruth with a rope. After her death, he immediately puts her under the floorboards of the living room before moving her to he puts her there, and then he eventually moves her to the back garden. Shortly after her murder, John resigns from the War Reserve. I guess he couldn't be a police officer while killing people. I mean,
yeah, or that's weird. You think you'd want to stay a police officer?
So that you could like stay on top of the investigations and stuff.
Yeah. Well, we watch too many TV shows.
Yeah, we do. I know. So I have a friend, Penny, who is with the police department here locally. And I know she's going to be like, yeah, stop watching all those crime shows. That's not how we do this.
The entire legal process doesn't get wrapped up in 1 hour.
You don't flash 30 seconds later from one scene to another and it's solved. 7.
Yeah, no. And there's no scene where everybody's in the room and you get to talk through who killed them.
We each take our part in the solving of it.
At first I thought it was you, but then I realized it couldn't be you because you have 2 left feet.
Oh man. Okay, so shortly after Ruth's murder, like I said, John resigns from the War Reserve. He then becomes employed as a clerk at a factory where he met his next victim, 32-year-old Muriel Amelia Eady. On October 7th of 1944, John invites Amelia back to his flat, promising her help for her bronchitis with a special mixture that he's concocted. I'm sure he's probably like, I've got a tincture for that. Yeah. I've got a tincture for that.
I mean, I know it was a different time, but that just sounds super shady. Like,
right?
Not suspicious at all. Come back to my apartment and drink the strange mixture I made.
And I can make fun of him because he's a horrible person. So I will do a horrible British accent to make fun of him. I'm not making fun of people from the UK. Just John Christie.
Just John.
So he promises her help with a tincture or mixture of sorts. Well, that mixture was actually Friar's balsam. It's a solution of benzoin resin in ethanol. He used that to disguise the smell of gas. He had her inhale from a jar that had a tube at the top of it. When Amelia was breathing the mixture from a tube, John, who was not visible to Amelia, inserts a second tube into the jar that connected to a gas tap. So as she's breathing in, think like Vicks Vapor Rub inhales, she starts inhaling gas disguised by the Friar's balsam, and she's soon unconscious from the gas, which in the 40s domestic gas was coal gas, which had like a carbon monoxide content of 15%.
Okay, so it seems really involved when he could have just like bonked her on the head. Like,
yeah, seriously. Like, seriously.
This guy, I mean, I'm not advocating bonking people on the head, but it's like there's something going on, and he went through this entire gas, rigmarole, and he didn't really have to.
Yeah. He put a lot of time and effort into this one. Like you said, just bonk her on the head. So after Amelia goes unconscious, John rapes her, then strangles her, and then buries her next to Ruth in the back garden. So in the spring around Easter of 1948, Timothy and Burl Evans move into the top flat of 10 Rillington Place. By this time, the Christies had been there about 10 years. The couple had been married less than a year and were expecting a baby.
So you got this newlywed couple, happy with the little baby on the way, idyllic, moving in next to grumpy monster man.
Petite Burl was 19. Timothy was 24. Timothy drove a van for a living, and well, he had a real rough life, right? Like a real rough start in life. His father left before he was born. His mom remarried, and he did not get along with his stepdad. He was known to throw incredible tantrums as a child, and he ended up living with his grandmother, who couldn't keep him in school. Now, earlier we talked about John's high IQ of 128, the average between 85 and 115. Timothy's IQ was 70. He also Yeah, a little bit on the lower side. He also became known as a habitual liar, prone to self-aggrandizing fantasies. That's a quote.
I have no idea what that's like.
As an adult, he was a violent alcoholic. He grew to be 5'5" and weighed 140 pounds. So I feel like he had a Napoleon complex, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, even though there are some people that feel like even Napoleon didn't have the complex named after him, but the one that we normally associate with Napoleon.
Yeah. Yes. So it's said that even as an adult, he had the mind of an 11-year-old. So Timothy,
body of a 12-year-old.
Timothy and Burl met on a blind date that had been arranged by a mutual friend, and within weeks they were engaged and married. The couple lived with his mom for a bit, and then Burl even grew close to Timothy's sisters. Burl mentally was considered by Timothy's sisters to be just as immature as Timothy. When Burl got pregnant, the house got too small and they had to find their own accommodations, which is why they moved to Rillington Place. Mm-hmm. So Timothy's sister came close to what could have been her demise. She's the one that found the flat and helped the couple furnish and decorate it. She stated once that while she was at the flat, John appeared with a cup of tea. She declined, yet he didn't leave. She told him, hey, look, my brother is going to be coming soon. And then he left. She later learned what that invite to tea most likely meant for her. Oh. So Geraldine was born October of 1948, and it seemed her birth caused a strain on the marriage between Tim and Burl. Tim's finances couldn't cover the bills, and Burl, not really a homemaker. She couldn't cook or clean well, and she even neglected the baby little Geraldine. So the couple fought verbally and sometimes even physically. In August of 1949, Burl invited her 17-year-old friend Lucy Endicott to come and stay with her, as she fought she thought Timothy was going to go overseas for work. So Lucy and Burl took the bed, and Tim is put out in the kitchen on the floor.
Oof. Not even a couch?
He's in the kitchen on the floor.
Or a divan or a Davenport, whatever you want to call it.
So now remember, the top floor we talked about only has 2 rooms. So in this time that all 3 of them are living together, Lucy and Tim become attracted to each other. Tim leaves Burl, and Lucy and Tim go to another flat. Ooh. Lucy also found Tim to be very violent. She puts him out, and he ends up back with Burl. Despite all of this, Burl ends up pregnant again. Goodness. But this time, she tries to take pills to abort the baby. Oh, boy. This is where we get really, really interesting, as it hasn't already been, right?
I was gonna say, this story took like an offshoot. We started with John, and now we're following Tim and Burl, and my brain's like, well, when's John coming back?
Oh, don't you worry. So the murder itself is a little vague. Now remember, Burl tries to abort the baby. Mm-hmm. John claims he spotted Burl on November 8th around noon. He saw her leave with baby number 1, Geraldine, and claims he never saw her again. Allegedly, around midnight, the Christies hear a loud thump overhead. The second floor tenant, Mr. Kitchener, was in the hospital, so the noise had to be from the Evanses. When they heard no further noises from the Evanses, 3rd floor flat, they went back to sleep. The next day, Timothy informs them that Burl had gone to Bristol, even though the quite outspoken one, she had told everyone of her plans to abort the baby. She never mentioned a trip. Timothy even told his mother that Burl had gone to Brighton to see her father, even though they weren't close. Now, remember, this is all version 1. So then the next day, Timothy told John that he'd been fired and was going to sell all of the furniture and join his wife in Bristol. Anyway. In debt with the furniture, he gave a dealer a fake address in Bristol and gave all of Burrell's torn, shredded bedding and clothing to a rag man. Then he left, but not to Bristol, but to his aunt's in Murthyvale, where he stayed for 6 days. On November 23rd, he returned to Rillington and told John that Burrell had left him. And then, without visiting his mother and his sisters, he returned to Murthyvale. That's version 1, which is real sketch.
Yeah.
Because it's basically like bump in the night, Burrell's gone. Tim's like, no, she went to visit her parents. I'm going to go visit her, but I'm going to sell our stuff because we're in debt. And then, but now I'm back because she left me. Nah, dude, that's your sketch. So version 2 is that Burrell told Lucy that John offered to abort her baby. So she trusts this former police officer. She's this poor, sweet, uneducated thing. Trust this former police officer with no medical background.
But who's really good at the tinctures.
Right. To help her. Timothy, on the other hand, wanted no parts of the abortion, telling both John and Burrell that it wasn't going to happen. Around the same time, which is the beginning of November, Timothy discovered that the money he had given Burrell for bills was used on other things, and it caused an argument and a fight, and he leaves. Days later, on November 7th, Timothy goes to work, and Burrell makes arrangements with John for the abortion for the next day. Now, here's where version 2 gets sticky. John's account, of course, is going to contradict itself because around noon on November 8th, John says he goes to Burrell's flat. She placed a quilt in front of a fire and laid down in preparation for the procedure. What happened next is Burrell panics. John hits her, then he strangles her with a cord. On one account of his story, he says he tried to have sex with her. And on another account, he says he doesn't. I'm going with story A based on what he did to a previous victim.
Right. That's his modus operandi, as they say.
So one of Burrell's friends comes around. Her name is Joan Vincent, and was surprised by the closed door and the fact that it seemed that Burrell wasn't home, because where else was Burrell going? And then she discovered, she felt all this was weird because she's knocking and Burrell's not answering. And she's like, Burrell, you don't go anywhere. Where are you, girl?
Yeah.
I love my own commentary, right?
Yeah. You got to add the little voices. It's like a radio play.
So all of this was really unusual. She tried to open the door, but something seemed to be blocking it. So she left. That night, when Timothy comes home, John meets him at the bottom of the stairs and tells him to go up. Once upstairs, he says, hey, man, I got some bad news. Didn't work. Timothy finds Burrell in the bedroom on the bed, covered. When he removes the blanket, he sees Burrell dead, blood coming from her mouth, her nose, her vagina. John tells Timothy that he believed Burrell may have died from septic poisoning since she tried so many remedies to abort the baby.
Okay. John being a doctor now as well.
Right. All that medical schooling he has. John somehow convinces Timothy not to go to police. He convinces him that they would both get in trouble because abortions were legal. And there's also, the manslaughter of killing Burrell.
Yeah. John
tells Timothy that he'd be an accomplice to his death since he had prior knowledge and he didn't stop it. And he adds that, since everybody knew that there were fights between him and Burrell, that he'd probably be the main suspect.
So now John is also a lawyer.
He has quite the job history, apparently.
Yeah. Fake cop, fake lawyer, fake doctor.
So Timothy is convinced to keep quiet, and John promises to dispose of the bodies, but he ends up needing Timothy's help. They take Burrell into the second floor flat, and they leave her in the kitchen. Timothy wanted to take his daughter to his mom's, but John convinces him that that's going to raise too many questions. So John says, look, I know a couple They'll take care of her. John takes Geraldine. Timothy never sees her again. And that's where, friends, we're going to leave this story for this week with part 1 of John Christie. Yeah, I didn't even tell you it was going to be a 2-parter because I had to draw and suck you in.
Yeah, you did a good job. Because now we don't. What happened to the little girl? Burl's dead. Timothy and John. Does John have another job coming?
Oh, John has many jobs, my friend. Many jobs. Many jobs. There you go. That's part 1 of John Christie and Timothy and Burl and Geraldine and so many more. My mom is going to hate this because she hates the 2-parter. She's like, I need it all now.
Yeah. No, I thought you were going to keep going. I was like, oh, we're on a roll. So this thing, must be a lot.
Oh, yeah. There's so much more. There's so much more.
Wow. All right. Well, it's good to do a 2-parter then. Keep us in that top 10 of all 2 million podcasts in the world.
Top 10%.
Yeah, top 10%. Gotta remember the percent. Very important detail. The difference between being one of 10 and one of being 200,000. Which is still blows me away.
I know, me too.
That's crazy. My brain was like, there must be a lot of people that do like one podcast and stop.
That's fine.
That's fine. We're still in there. I just think it's cool. And it always does shock me when people like reference stuff. Like, I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, you listened? Oh, okay.
Which part did you like?
Yeah.
A side, B side. What side are you on?
You have to get a remix of that. Now that you got all this extra time.
Gosh, yes, we'll have to figure that out.
All right. You ready for the A side?
Mm-hmm.